The rain that day flooded the windows of the cramped studio, painting everything in a watery grey. The smell of old coffee lingered in the air, mixed with the sharper tang of turpentine and damp clothes. It was a Monday afternoon in Montreal, and the room was thick with the anticipation of judgment. My classmates, some fidgeting, some already animated with half-suppressed whispers, circled the row of pinned photographs like crows. The professor, M. Gerard, a thin man with nervous hands, strode to the front, ready to begin our weekly critique. My photographs were third in line. I tried to steady my breathing and not stare at the bright white paper on the wall, the proof that I'd spent 3 nights wandering the twilit arrondissements searching for the perfect shutter click. I'd wanted to find the overlooked Paris, the scribbles on elevator walls, the love notes tucked into cigarette butts under benches, the defiant neon that refused to sleep. The world never looked at those things. I hoped the images would show something new. The first critique was gentle, applause, a suggestion about use of shadow. The second, a vibrant fashion series, was hailed as vive, très actual. I heard polite claps. Then Gerard called my name, and a cold knot of fear slid into my chest. He faced the images. The first was of an old Algerian tailor, his hand mid-flight as he threw crumbs to pigeons in Place des Fayets. The second, tinny reflections on the flooded stairs of the Barb's metro. The third, a sleeping woman on a tram, her face resting in a patch of light. Gerard squinted. Pourquoi ça, why these moments? He asked, gesturing brusquely. You see, class, it is not enough to photograph something, you must show why it matters. His gaze was sharp but not cruel, yet I cleared my throat. I think these moments are the soul of Paris, the unnoticed. A hand shot up in the back. Maxime, who always knew how to wound. But who would pay for this? There is nothing in these photos, it's just dirt and miserable people. Someone snickered, a girl leaned forward, eyebrows drawn. You want to be a fashion photographer? No. This, she waved at my third photo, is ugly. I felt their eyes crawling over me, hungry and doubting. I said quietly, I want to show what's real. Maxime smirked, good luck making money with that. You'll end up taking passport photos for old ladies. A few others laughed openly now, even Gerard seemed to surrender. You have poetry, he said, but poetry without hunger is not art. Maybe next week something more commercial, I nodded, cheeks burning. When the session ended, I gathered my prints, careful not to let anyone see my hands shaking. Maxime's jibe echoed against the dull drumbeat of my heart. Ugly, worthless, just dirt. When I got home, a squat walk-up where Ma kept the lights low to save centimes. She was waiting at the table in her housecoat, her face shadowed. How was school? I tried to smile. It was fine. She caught my sleeve, studying me. All this time with your pictures, Etienne, you could be helping your uncle at the store, you know, you're the eldest. I will, maman, I said, though my voice was thinned. I just need to try. She sighed, letting go. We cannot live on dreams, Etienne, not in Paris. I didn't answer. That night I tried to sleep. The city outside tossed and spun, headlights scraping neon lines across my ceiling. I felt ashamed, afraid, knowing the world saw no use in what I loved. Yet beneath the fear there was something harder, a quiet defiance. I couldn't let go, not yet. That winter crawled by with the slow scratch of old records on Ma's battered stereo. I worked at the épicerie some evenings, stacking boxes, sweeping sawdust, bowing when Madame Beaulieu compared me unfavorably to her nephew, who'd just gotten a banking job. Still, when the sun rose, I was out again with my battered Nikon trailing city blocks, waiting for the impatient light. The gallery rejections arrived quickly, uncommercial, sentimental, lacking vision. Sometimes they didn't bother to answer at all. The struggle hollowed something out inside me but also sharpened my purpose. I shot, developed, tried again. One day, as spring edged warily into Belleville, I found a note tucked beneath my door, cheap white paper, a looping scrawl. You have an eye for ghosts, call me. It was unsigned with a number. I dialed from the payphone down the hall, and after one ring she answered, a brisk, accented voice. Renata Campos owned a tiny magazine, Traces Asterisk, that specialized in avant-garde city life. She wanted to meet. Her office was little more than a borrowed room above a bakery with sagging walls and crumpled stacks of past issues. But Renata looked at my portfolio with a seriousness I'd never met before. Everyone is making Paris about perfection, she said, flipping through my prints. You are showing me the in-between. I want more. For 3 months, I worked for almost nothing, €10 for a feature, 5 for short photo essays. But each time she published my work, I felt a bolt of vindication. I shot the city's backlot heart, its alleyways and broken festivals, its hidden orphans of light. There were rejections, many of them from bigger publications, all dismissing the rawness of my images. My mother still frowned, and Maxime, whenever we crossed paths, would raise a mocking eyebrow, but Renata's faith kept me moving. Over time, my name began to circulate quietly, the kind of name passed in whispers between independent curators, the kind that was not yet money, but was at least possibility. Years stretched and thinned. I photographed revolutions in the spring, heartbreak in the fall. My lens became both shield and bridge. Poverty, addiction, exile, the world offered me scars, and I tried to honor them, never to exploit. There were still lean times. I borrowed for rent more than once. Some nights I wanted to quit, but then one autumn morning Renata called breathless, the city loud behind her. "You need to check your email, Etienne, now." In my inbox, a message marked International Exhibition Invitation. The Galerie Moderne, famed for championing raw new voices, wanted to showcase my work in a solo show. Just 3 weeks to prepare. Signed, Marguerite Marceau, director. After I read it, I went outside and stared at the bone-pale sky for a long time, feeling the wind press against my face. I could have cried, but I didn't, only felt a deep, full warmth surge in my chest, like the world had finally let me draw breath. Ma didn't quite understand at first. She asked if the gallery would buy some postcards. Maxime called the exhibition a lucky break, then told a mutual friend that real artists filled magazines, not gallery walls. But something had shifted. People I barely knew started to call. My uncle came by with a new shirt for me. The neighborhood pressed in, proud but still half skeptical, as if I were a vision that might vanish. 3 weeks passed in a fever. I barely slept, printing and framing, reviewing which images might best tell the story I carried inside me for so long. Every memory of shame and laughter and struggle wound into the selection. When opening night arrived, I stood outside the Galerie Moderne, hands shaking, eyes fixed on my own name stenciled boldly across the wide windows. It didn't feel real. Inside, the gallery thrummed with low voices and the clink of glasses. The photographs hung bright and trembling on flawless white walls, the old Algerian tailor, the metro's flooded stare, the sleeping woman on the tram. Other faces too from the years between, an addict cradling his kitten in the canal basin, a boy skateboarding through golden light near Parc de la Villette, 2 lovers arguing softly in the rain. Strangers drifted from one frame to the next, pausing for long quiet moments, some dabbing at their eyes, some smiling despite themselves. A journalist asked about the city as I saw it. The director pressed my hand, whispering congratulations. All their approval rushed over me but felt untouchable, like a prolonged echo. Halfway through the evening, as I hovered by the third wall, a familiar laugh cut the air. I turned and saw Maxime, older now, his hair thinner, dressed in sharp black. He swept in with a little entourage, a friend from school, 2 women, maybe a junior gallery rep. Their eyes were cool, searching. He walked up, stopping before my photo of the sleeping tramwoman. He didn't see me yet, just tilted his head and frowned as if trying to solve a puzzle. His friend smirked. "Metro chic." Maxime laughed, not unkindly but without warmth. "Maybe in 10 years this will be worth a fortune." Then he turned, meeting my gaze for the first time. His face flickered, surprise catching him off guard. "Etienne. This is unexpected," he said, looking around as if he might find some trick. "You actually filled a gallery." I let just a trace of my old fear into my voice. "So it seems." He studied the crowd, then the wall, then me. For a moment I saw all the old cruelty in his eyes, then something else. A hint of uncertainty, as if he could no longer quite remember why he'd ever been so sure I would fail. His friend flipped through the program, surprise blooming in her voice. "You're in the New York Times and Le Monde asterisk." I nodded, yes, they wanted to see the real Paris. There was a hush around us. Others were listening, neighbors, old classmates, one of my aunts who'd always called me the dreamer. Maxime stepped away, his practiced smile faltering. "Well, congratulations, Etienne," he managed, his tone wrapped tight. My mother arrived just then, breathless in her good scarf, cheeks pink. She saw the people, the reporters, the city's glittering few all gathered around my photos. She pressed my face in both hands and gave a quiet, trembling laugh she hadn't used in years, half pride, half apology. "You did it, mon fils, you made your own way." For the first time I believed I had, and even in the middle of the crowd I felt strangely alone, buoyed not by vengeance but by a quiet absolution. In the months that followed, success clattered in with new brightness. I traveled. I saw my pictures printed on glossy pages, on billboards by the Seine. I shot festivals in Morocco, train stations in Berlin, hunger strikes in Athens. But nothing struck me so cleanly, so deeply, as standing back in my old building, the peeling grey stare, breathing in the smell of old bread and rain, returning to see Ma smiling under the brittle kitchen lamp, my framed magazine covers above the sink, crooked but revered. Sometimes I would pass someone on the street from those early photos, a street cleaner, a dancing boy, the tailor still alive in his old checked coat. They knew me now, sometimes nodded with secret pride, mostly left me to my invisible place. They didn't ask for anything. They recognized something silently made together, the city's invisible thread. On the first anniversary of the gallery show, Marguerite wrote and asked if I'd consider a community workshop, an exhibition for young local photographers without means, the sort of access I'd never had. I said yes without thinking. That weekend, I stood in front of a half-broken classroom in Montreal, the same hall where Maxime once laughed at me. My hands trembled a little, but this time with anticipation, not fear. New faces watched me, suspicious, hopeful, too proud to admit how much it mattered. When I showed them my earliest prints, the ones my classmates called ugly, worthless, there was a hush. Then slowly, one girl in the back raised her hand and asked, "But how did you know they were worth showing if everyone told you to stop?" I smiled, remembering the night heat of the city, the way light clung to even the most forgotten corners. "You don't," I said, "you just know you need to try, sometimes that's all." Later, when the workshop ended, I wandered home down rain-slick streets, my camera slung across my chest. Paris pulsed with all its contradictions, glamour and garbage, hope and defeat, just as it always had, but it was different now. I walked untethered by shame, chosen by the city in a way you can't ever plan. That night from my window I looked out on the silvered rooftops. The old doubts still flickered at the edge of memory, mockery, fear, the bruises of rejection, but they felt distant now, softened by years, by struggle, by returning home not as a prodigal, but as someone who had given the city its own story so that others might see and know it, and themselves, anew. And that, I realized, was the only judgment I had ever needed.